It may not feel like it in Cleveland, Ohio, but spring training is just around the corner. It's almost time for Guardians baseball. Not a lot of new faces in the organization, but some new faces. And we got one that's not a new face, but also is a new face. It is new Guardians hitting coach Grant Fink joining us on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to today's Locked On Guardians. I'm your host, Justin Latta. Thanks for being here and thanks for being an everydayer. Before we get started with today's special guest, Grant Fink, I want to let you know that Super Bowl 59 is almost here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. If you're new here, you know I'm Justin Latta. You know I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. I have written for places like Guardians Baseball Insider, /Indians Baseball Insider, the News Herald, the Morning Journal, Prospects Live, Next Year in Cleveland, and I've been here with you. One of those players I was lucky enough to cover in my time covering the minor leagues is Grant Fink. And Grant, I was just saying before we started recording that there's no possible way you and I are old enough that you were playing not that long ago, and now you're the major league hitting coach for the Guardians. There's no way that much time has passed.
Yeah, it went incredibly quick, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. Grant, I one thing that strikes me is that I saw the minor league coaching announcements came out today before we started this, and one thing that always sticks out to me is there's so many former draft picks and players by the organization that stick around and coach here, and I feel like that speaks to the organization's ability to identify, not just talent, but and maybe not just on-field talent, but people that they trust to come into the system and work with, whether it's as a player or whatever happens in the future. Not everyone makes it the big leagues, obviously, but I feel like there's something to that. The guys that get drafted here stick around here and end up coaching here, and there feels like there's something to that culture. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing our organization does incredibly well is it invests in people. So when we're bringing people in to coach, there's a huge importance on just understanding who they are and the impact they can make on other people. So having ex-players and understanding who they are as personalities and their motives is always a benefit. And you see a lot of players want to stay around, and that's a testament to our organization and the way it invests in developing those human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just saying how much time goes by fast. You've got a lot of good things going on too. I know you guys are expecting over there. Congratulations on that. That's so exciting. And now you're the major league hitting coach. Just take me through this past year for you, all the good things that are happening and how excited you are for all those things and kind of your journey to where you are at right now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Expecting our second daughter. So if I have to end this call here quickly, we're heading to the hospital, but it's been a really exciting year. Just being in the minor leagues has been such a cool experience for me over the last number of years, and being able to help and watch players achieve their goals. And now kind of shifting to being on the field at the highest level. I'm incredibly excited for this opportunity. It's been a whirlwind. I'm excited for it, but I'm ready to get out there and start competing with the guys.
So what made you want to transition to coach? Obviously, you played here for a couple of years. You started coaching here in 2017. What made you want to pursue coaching and being a hitting coach? What made you make that decision?
Well, you would know, as you covered a lot of the time when I was playing, that the likelihood of me playing in the major leagues as a player was not going to be super high. So I was lucky that in my last years while as a player in Lake County, I realized my passion for impacting people and knew that my future was likely not going to be as a player, but about helping people achieve their goals and dreams. So it was a pretty quick and easy transition, and I'm just in love and obsessed with baseball. And when I got into coaching, I started as a defensive coach, which I'm so thankful for because it gave me some insight to the whole game and not just hitting, but quickly realized that I couldn't get out of the cage. And I mean, being a hitting coach is kind of an insane job these days, and I love the challenge of that. So right when I started coaching, I became obsessed with hitting and figuring out how to help players, achieve what I couldn't achieve as a player. And that's consistency as a hitter. So
I would say, I know you said your time, at least playing, was short, but I watched you play, and you had a good season there, here and there. You had some home. I know you had like 13 home runs the one year, whatever it was, but the team kept you around. They clearly found value in you being around the organization. I think that made it an easy way to see that you'd become a future coach here. I think that the team really liked you. I could see how long they kept you around here. And you talked about, everyone who gets drafted, that wants to be a major leaguer. Obviously, everyone that's the goal when you get drafted. Everyone wants to work towards that. And not everybody gets there, but you get to get there, at least as a coach. That's got to be at least satisfying for your journey, like you said, helping other people achieve their goals. But it's got to be also satisfying for you to reach a goal. Like, hey, you're still a major leaguer. You're a coach. That's still a big deal, even if it's not on the field as a player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm incredibly excited and thankful this organization from the day I stepped in here, what they provided for me to invest in me as a coach and a human being, and to help me continue to learn was all you could ask for.
Now, you mentioned that being a hitting coach today is insane, and I absolutely agree. There's so much going on. I think coaching in Major League Baseball and pro baseball is just so insane these days. So much more information. The staffs are bigger. The expectations are there. What are kind of the day-to-day responsibilities of being a hitting coach? Because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and any coach really. But it's not just tweaking this guy's swing or talking about this pitcher, but there's a lot that goes into it, right? There's scouting reports. There's so much data. How do you kind of handle things day to day? What you're learning so far?
Yeah, I mean, it was evident when you first started coaching the amount of information that's in today's game. Being able to digest that and make it applicable to players, that would be number one. We kind of, bucket it all in just like support. We're here to support and work with players. So anything we can do to make their jobs easier and to let them go out and just be themselves on the field, that in any aspect of coaching, but especially in hitting, because there's so much information that we have to dissect it and make sure that it's applicable to each individual guy.
Yeah, hitting's hard. Pitching is really good these days. It is really hard to be a hitter. I feel like pitchers have the advantage. Like, there's a lot of data, and there's a lot of information out there, and you have to be careful about like how much you're ingesting and going out there and reacting versus thinking all the time. But I feel like pitchers have such an advantage. Like, there's edgertronics, and there's TrackMan, all this stuff that's going on that's being used, and you got all these high-speed cameras for pitching. So what advancements do you feel like have been important for hitting for you to use and for you to help hitters? Because I feel like it's a lot of the technology sometimes is for the hitters. I mean, you've got guys that are throwing 100 out of bullpens and all these nasty sweepers and sliders and things like that. Like, what can you do with hitters to help them keep up?
Well, where we've been lucky is in recent years, we've started to, understand exactly what the best players in the game do. And while that's been a benefit for us, we've also realized that it's so unique to individual guys. So at this point in time, like understanding that every player is such an individual, and knowing that there's multiple ways to get the job done. We use a lot of technology and just understanding, ball flight and what's beneficial, or swing decisions and where a guy is going to be more impactful in the zone. So we're trying to keep up with the pitching there. It would be a lot easier if we were playing T-ball, where you could just totally affect the body and the ball doesn't move, but we also have to react. So there's some mental components in there as well.
Yeah, the mental side to me is really interesting. I was going to wait to bring this up, but since you brought it up, we had Brad Goldberg on the podcast not too long ago, and he talked about Carl Willis and, what a wealth of information he is and how good he is. But the one thing that stood out to me that Brad pointed out about Carl is that timing is his greatest asset. He said Carl knows timing very well, when to say something, what to say. How do you feel about that? Is that something you still have to learn, considering this is I know you've been coaching the system for a few years now, but how do you learn timing? I guess you got to learn people and what the right time is to say something to a specific person, because you almost got to be a psychologist to know what to say and when to say it to them. But I mean, do you feel like timing, that's such a key asset in what you've learned so far?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just thinking through the mental warfare that hitters go through, and the psychological just fight they're facing on a daily basis. I've had the experience of being around Carl and seeing how he just views it so player driven, and understanding when players want to be talked to and when's not the time to go in there. And it absolutely, there's a ton of psychology around it, and emotional intelligence and learning like when to push, when to pull. And that's kind of the art of coaching. And I think the fun part that I'm going to learn at the major league level for sure, because it's my first year and there's going to be some challenges, but again, the organization, we don't do anything individually. So I'm going to have the support system around us and our staff and Voter and Albie to continue to work on that and learn when to get in there and then when to pull back.
Yeah, how important is that for you going into your first year at the major league level? Because we talked about Carl Willis. I know he's a pitching coach, but he's still been around a long time. It is a young staff. Like, obviously last year was Voter's first year. But you got guys like Carl Willis, you got Sandy Alomar, who's been here forever. Albie has been in a major league dugout for a couple of years. Kai Correa, who I know was within the system and then over in San Francisco is back. How important for you is it that you have them, but also guys like, Esposito, other guys that have been around to help kind of transition and learn things. And that way the onus isn't, just like you said, all on you. You don't do things individually.
Oh, it's going to be massively important. So I'm super thankful that I have a relationship pretty much with everyone on staff. I was blessed to be able to, be a part of the environment for a little bit last year and in previous years, but just relying on those experiences is going to be incredibly important. And I couldn't be more thankful for those individuals for sure.
All right, I'll ask you a little bit more about who you've learned from, some coaching philosophies, things like that, in just a second. We continue on today's Locked On Guardians. If you're looking for Guardians tickets to start the year, I know Game Time's a great place to do that. There's going to be a lot of great Guardians games to go to this year. Right now, though, the NFL playoffs are an unforgettable experience. We know the Super Bowl is coming up, all that good stuff right now. Nothing we love more than live events and watching players compete. And it's not just live events, right? It's not just players and athletes and games. It's theater. There's a lot of great theater in Cleveland. There's a lot of good comedy in Cleveland. We get good concerts sometimes too, I feel like. But Game Time Picks is the best way to find all of the tickets for NFL playoff games. Browsing through deals is very simple. It tells you what super deals compare to the market so you know what you're paying. And, I love the all-in pricing feature as well. So you can know exactly what you're paying to get into the arena or into the event without any surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create the account and redeem our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase on Game Time. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Grant, I was going to ask you too, who have been some of your biggest coaching influences so far? Guys you've learned from, guys that you really have taken things away from that you feel like have been so helpful so far?
Yeah. So when I first entered, and I said I started on the defensive side, one of my first mentors was Travis Fryman, who, has been an unbelievable player in his career, but has also been such a resource to our organization. And he really helped me in my first few years, just learn my style and what it means to be a coach and what it means to prepare. And then I had some really cool experiences coaching on staffs with just a variety of different personalities. I was able to be on a staff with Rugi Odor my second year, who's now our third base coach. And, his experience being 20 something plus years in baseball and me learning from him in my second year of coaching was another thing that kind of shaped the direction I went in and, putting the focus on players first and learning how to work in a group and a team. So I'd say those two initial years were really big for me. And those two people had a big impact on my life early.
Rugi is always someone I hear the players love quite a bit. I was so glad to see him get promoted to the Major League staff a couple of years ago. I've always heard for years in Akron how much guys liked him and could always not just have to hear it, but you can see it. The players just respond to him and they play hard for him and they learn from him and they're not afraid to work hard. And I know that's a lot of guys on the staff, but I'm glad you brought up Rugi because I always really liked talking to him when he was managing in the minors, and it seems that players really respect him.
Yeah, there's not many greater human beings on this earth than him. So it was really cool to be a part of his journey as well.
Now, I know you know a lot of these guys from working with them. You've been in the organization for a couple of years coaching. I want to ask you about coaching Jose Ramirez because how do you learn to coach someone like that? Because I know Jose's a great guy and he's open to working hard, and we know he works hard. But like, he's one of the greatest hitters. He's in franchise history, one of the greatest hitters in baseball. How do you coach a guy like that? Do you almost have to like learn like, okay, it's about psychology, right? When to say something, what to say. But are there some days you're like, just stay out of his way. He's good at what he does. How do you balance those kind of things coaching someone who's that great?
We're going to find out, but I mean, Jose is one of the greatest players on the planet. And honestly, I'm just excited to watch him on a daily basis. I've been lucky I was a player in the system when he was coming up. So I've kind of seen his career go through its entire path, but ultimately just want to learn from him and see what makes him good. And one thing about Jose that I know from just being around him is he's not afraid of challenges and he always wants to get better. So I think partnering with him on how he wants to improve in the next coming years and just being a resource and a friend to him will be important.
I heard Stephen Vogt talk the other day about some of the work the players put in last year, and it was about, these guys aren't afraid to work. Let's make them work, and they worked hard. And I know Jose was out there taking ground balls, but everybody was out there, he said, doing work, and that was one of the things that made this team so successful. Before that, or all season long, was just that getting out there and doing the work with coaches every day and not being afraid to put that in, and seeing the results of it obviously really helps. How do you balance, I know, everyone says, I want to go out there and take 500 swings in the cage, because that's not productive. You want to make sure the work you're putting in is impactful, right? It's more about working smart, not hard. So how do you balance getting guys in the cage, looking over data or hitting off a machine or something like that, and making sure it's impactful and not just, working hard to work hard?
Yeah, I think voters set the tone last year in the culture that we're gonna out prepare. We're gonna prepare at the highest level possible, and that doesn't always mean that you're just on the hitting side. You're just going in blindly swinging, but there's a little more targeted work with that. So I think the balance is understanding what players need and understanding when they're at their best, what their routine looks like, when they're feeling their best mentally, what's the process you went through daily. And then us as a staff is, again, knowing when to push and then knowing when to just let them go do their thing. And I think we're going to find a balance of that early.
Vogt and also Jhonkensy Noel, I heard him speak too, was talking about using technology too, and was talking about the at bat he had before, I think it was Game 3, the home run off of blank on Luke Weaver. And he was talking about hitting off the changeup, or a machine that replicates that changeup. So how important is it to have technology like that? And like I said, we've talked about balancing different things in coaching, but how important is that to have technology like that can simulate guys' pitches, and how can that be helpful for guys preparing for at-bats and preparing for pitchers?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time in history, the last couple of years, where we've had a machine that can, simulate the exact trajectory, flight, and speed and angles of the pitcher you're about to face. So being able to get in there and take, 20 at-bats off the pitcher before you go face them, that's a massive advantage from where we've been in the past. So guys diving into that and wanting to do it, because it is new and it's not something that's been part of the game forever, and it's challenging. And sometimes guys don't like to get beat up right before they go out and get onto the field. But our guys they made a promise to each other that they were going to prepare at an incredibly high level, and the way that they attacked, just the training environments we put in front of them last year and what that did on the field, especially in the playoffs, was really cool to be a part of and watch.
How much those machines being around would have been helpful for you in your playing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like we've seen so much more technology now, and I'm like, wow. Well, I can imagine a lot of players would have benefited from this from before, but it's also a challenge too. I remember talking to Brad, and he was talking about the COVID year. He spent a lot of time just digging into all the different technology and learning those things. I feel like if you're not using it as a player, it's one thing to use it as a player and be told this is what matters, and being communicated to how they respond to it. But learning it's got to be such a different thing too, right? You got to dive in, because it's not something you've used personally before. And I know he spent a lot of time doing that. How much time did you have to kind of spend catching up on some of these things that you didn't have as a player?
Yeah. So when I first came into coaching, I was coming in as an ex-player that had some skills in building relationships and culture in the clubhouse. But what I did not have was a lot of knowledge. And again, early on in my career, people who advised me to not let information be something that stops you from developing as a coach, and don't just rely on people's skills, but figure out a way to use information to help supplement your relationships and to help players continue to build and to get better. So early on, that was the trajectory of my career. Is I wanted to dive into tech. I wanted to know why the body was moving the way it was moving. I wanted to know why the best players had success. And I'm really thankful that people pushed me in that direction.
Yeah, biomechanics is something, watching baseball as a kid, I never thought about and probably didn't think about until about 10 years ago. But now biomechanics and learning hitter patterns and movement is such a big thing now. So it's a lot of information. You've got to be able to capture all of it. You've also got to be able to communicate to people. But I think that's the thing people don't realize about coaching is like it's not just the baseball stuff. It's the psychology. It's communicating and making information digestible and not overwhelming players with it. But you've got to be the keeper of a lot of those things, and you've got to know when it's okay. And I know I keep going back to this, but I feel like it's not just hey, this guy throws a fastball and you need to make this change to your swing. There's just so much intricate detail that goes into it. And like I said, I wouldn't have thought about it 10 years ago, but now it's fascinating. And I imagine it's even harder to actually do than just talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately that's our job as coaches, again, is to take just like complex ideas and to make it digestible and something that's actionable. And that takes a lot of work. And again, it goes back to the preparation of our staff and making sure that we're putting the right information out at the right time.
All right. I'd love to talk about some hitters you're excited to work with. I know there are some guys already in Arizona that have been working hard for a while now. So let's dive into that here in just a second. But first, we already know Super Bowl 59 is here. It is coming fast. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. No better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook, whether it's predicting that first touchdown, who's going to be the MVP. I think we all know it's going to be a quarterback of some sort anyway, or maybe it'll be a running back. Saquon Barkley's had a great year for the Eagles, so that'll be a lot of fun. You can even bet on the coin toss. FanDuel makes it easier to get on the action. Live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds. Feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. You can download the app now, get $200 in bonus bets for betting just $5. Download the app, head to FanDuel.com to get started. You'll score $200 in bonus bucks with bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. So, Grant, I know one guy specifically who has been in Arizona quite a bit of time already is Bo Naylor, putting a lot of off-season changes, things like that. What are some of the things you've picked up from Bo already? I know he is a tremendously hard worker. I know that, especially on the defensive end. Like, this is a guy who has put a lot on his plate. Like, he's tasked with managing the pitching staff, things like that. I know he went out of his way to learn Spanish in years past. So clearly, a guy who's not afraid to put in hard work. So, what can you speak on right now that you're working with Bo on?
Yeah, we're incredibly proud of Bo and just his, dedication to coming into the Arizona complex every day and working on not just his defense, but his hitting. I think last year was a really big learning year for him. He was really successful in the things that he did, but he spent some time thinking about like, okay, how can I put it all together now? And what is going to be the steps for me to be the hitter that I'm capable of becoming? And a lot of that is just him having confidence in, what he's doing and understanding himself as a hitter and what his strengths are. So most of our offseason has been about just getting him to a spot where he's feeling really good about where his swing is, and then tactically knowing where to hunt and continue along that process.
Not the first time too for him to have to overcome offensive challenges. I know after the pandemic year, everybody had to deal with a lot of things coming back for not playing baseball that year. There were some offensive challenges for him that year that I know you can probably attest to, but he came back in 2022 and was a fantastic hitter. So it's not like he hasn't been there before. He had a great 2023. We all know it's in there. So I'm sure it helps too before that he's had to come back and prepare and make changes. I mean, hitters have to adjust every day, but I'm sure it's helpful for him that he has kind of been through these challenges before.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back to his minor league career. You can go to some of the ebb and flows in his big league career to this point. Like, he's always responded, and he's always been a consistent hitter. So we're just excited that he's out here every day and preparing at a level that is incredibly high.
We talked about Jhonkensy Noel before, that at bat against Luke Weaver, all that stuff. He made such a big impact last year, and we know what a dangerous hitter he is when he can make pitchers come into the zone. What's the challenge in working with hitters like Noel? You guys talking about good swing decisions, things like that, staying in the zone. Someone like Noel who has such impact power that maybe nobody else has in this team. But, to work with them on like making better swing decisions so he can force pitchers like Luke Weaver or whoever into making mistakes where he can impact the baseball.
Yeah. There's such a balance between, like force and accuracy. And one thing we don't want to take away from Noel is his ability to impact the baseball. Like, that's what his unbelievable skill is. And with that comes at times a little bit of the free swinging mentality. So the goal with him is just going to be to find the best possible approach at the plate to maximize his impact while limiting some of the chase that he's had in the past. And he's put a lot of hard work on that as well. Another guy who's spent a lot of time in Arizona, just hungry to make small improvements there. And we're really excited of what he's going to look like this year as well.
So I know you've been around as the hitting coordinator. I know you had a chance to work with some of the minor leaguers as well. Love to ask you about Chase DeLauter as well, because this is a guy with a lot of talent, obviously one of the best hitting prospects in the organization and throughout baseball. We hear a lot about, like, it's a swing that most people aren't used to seeing, on paper or on video. How do you describe that to people who might not understand, like, why it might look different, but how do you work with somebody who might have a different, everyone swings differently and no one has the same swing really, but how do you work with a guy who might be a little bit different in his swing? Because, like, there are certain checkpoints every hitter has to go through, right? We're talking about body movements. So how do you work with someone like that where you have to identify things that, like, okay, this is maybe out of whack, that is different for him, that might be different for somebody else with a completely different swing? I know that's standard for everybody, but I'm, at least Chase specifically here.
Yeah, well, Chase's swing, it's so fast that at times it can look a lot different than what's actually happening beneath the surface. So his swing is actually incredibly efficient. And as a hitting coach, we're relying mostly on performance, right? So we're taking a look at, like, okay, it's not just what looks good in our brain, but what actually leads to success on the field. So when you're looking at Chase, he gets the bat to the ball, he makes great swing decisions, and he's incredibly forceful with his path. So there's not a lot there that I look at and I'm like, hey, that needs to change. Honestly, it's just going to be a mental game for him and making sure that he's confident and ready to go when his opportunity comes. But in terms of the actual swing, yeah, he's made some adjustments early on that he needed to, and he's primed to go have a successful year and hopefully help our team at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. And yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Don't focus on things that are already working. We've also had Cooper Ingle on this podcast in the past, and I really enjoyed talking to him. I thought he was a really smart guy. And one of the things he kind of let us in on in his journey, at least in hitting, was that the concept he got of learning to pull the ball and hitting more fly balls. And that's not to say, like, he's trying to do that every time. Not the coaches are saying you got to pull every ball and hit in the air. But he talked about how it made sense to him, the way you guys communicated to him, to do that more, but also to ID pitches where that's possible. How do you communicate that to players, or how do you train for that, where, Cooper Ingle's not going to hit fly balls every time, or every guy's not going to hit fly balls every time and try to pull it, because that's not efficient. You're going to get yourself in trouble by doing that. But how do you teach and communicate physically and mentally how to ID pitches where you can do that and teach those opportunities?
Yeah, well, when Cooper first got drafted, again, this is giving a ton of credit to the kid. This is a rare occurrence, but he's coming from being an All-American. And one of the very first meetings we sat down on this, how do I get better to become a big leaguer one day? And, like, a lot of the times when players come in and say, hey, I'm going to do what got me here. But he was immediately thinking of the future of, like, where are the areas that I can really improve? And when we looked at his profile and how to maximize the hitter he has an incredible skill to get the bat to the ball, and he can use the whole field well. There was some room for growth on when he gets pitches he can slug on to let himself go. And he took that and he practiced it. And you saw it this year in his first full season as a Guardian. Like, he was able to do both. And that's something that we think he can do for the rest of his career, is be that complete hitter, but also when pitchers make mistakes or they come inside, like, he can move the bat a little bit and he can drive the ball. So that's got to be practiced as well.
Yeah. MVP of the Midwest League. That's no accident for sure. All right, let's get you out of here on this now. I know, you're working with the big league hitters, but you've had work with minor league hitters in the past. You've been all around. And I know you guys don't pay attention to outside rankings, nor should you. But I will point out, you guys have had a lot of top prospects out there on all these rankings, and most of them are position players. We've got Travis Bazana, Angel Henao, DeLauter, Ralphie Velasquez. And that's great because you've been working with some of these guys before. But also got to be great for you as an organization, and great for you because, hey, I've got tons of these talented, really special hitters to work with in the future coming your way, it seems like.
Yeah, I think when you just look at the scope of our entire organization from an offensive and pitching side, like, it's an exciting time. We have a lot of belief that we can put together a really, really good offense here. And we've made steps and strides in the right direction. And as a group, we're just going to continue to push there. But yeah, I'd be lying if I wouldn't say this is not an exciting time to be a part of this offensive group and just this organization in general right now.
Yeah, I would say so. All right, Grant, thanks for taking the time to join us. We'll get you out of here and get you back to more important matters. Hope everything goes smooth and everyone's happy and healthy and get some time to be with the family before things ramp up for spring training.
Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate you guys having me on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And have a great season, and we'll catch up with you soon.
I appreciate it. Take care.